I remember, you know, when I got on stage with Jon Anderson, you know, I played with, yes you do. And, well, for those folks who don't know, Jon Anderson's the Jon Anderson from Yes. And he joined a band with the Jean-Luc Ponty, who's the main band I've been with since the 70s. And I remember sitting next to him, and he said, do you know Just You and I? And I said, yeah, I had the record when I was in high school. And I said, well, how did you play it? He took the guitar and he went, you know. And I was like, holy smokes, I'm sitting next to Jon Anderson, man. And then he just handed me the guitar. He said, it's your job. So I did it. And I was so happy. Not because I was sitting next to the star Jon Anderson, but because we shared something, right? We were going to share the stage, and he was going to sing to the people. Now, Jon have you ever interviewed Jon? I think you did, right?
Yep. No, just a beautiful soul of a man.
He's beautiful. Now, he's the real thing, you know? He's not the, I mean, at least we all have our own relationships with people, right? So when I go to lunch with him at Subway, which is his favorite restaurant, did he tell you that in the interview?
No. It's one of mine too. Actually, I like it.
I do too. But Subway is such a favorite of his that when it was his birthday, I gave him a gift certificate for Subway, and he was like almost crying. He was just wow. But I mean, I have this relationship that, you know, they're fans. They know him from the long pieces, the topographic oceans, and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know that guy. Like when he used to do the poetry on stage, I was like, this guy must have done a lot of drugs because I don't understand a word he's saying, but I'm glad I'm standing behind him, right? On the other hand, he is magnificent in that he truly loves other people, and he truly loves our planet.
Yep. And
he will lay his life down to prove that love is all there is. I mean, for anybody younger listening to this interview who thinks that those of us in the 60s were full of crap, I can tell you Jon Anderson's not.
Right, yeah.
This was the epitome of everything we grew up with, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, when I interviewed him like this, and it was sort of it just felt like such a soft soul. I mean, he was so taken by the sunshine that day, I want to say, and a snake that he had seen, and it was like, you know, and I was kind of in the mode of like, well, I know you only have 30 minutes, so I really want to talk about more songs, but he just was like, he was so present in the day, and I just loved that, you know. I mean, it made an impact on me, whether he meant to make an impact on me. He was just so in the moment, and it was a beautiful thing for me to hear, you know, and I hope other people got that kind of sentiment too, right?
Yeah, no, positively. You know, Frank, it's interesting because, you know, as much as our public persona is, we're all a little different. I know things about, I mean, I've seen Jon angry, real angry actually, and I can guarantee you, because I already asked two people, that his fans would not believe that Jon. That Jon doesn't exist because he is love and he is but you know, he's still a person.
Absolutely.
And you know, when you first reached out to me, which I'm really grateful because we'll be friends, and I'm grateful to be on your show, not to overuse that word. You asked in your letter if I knew the real person you wanted to interview, right? From another band, and I found I was human because nobody has ever asked me to find anybody else, right? They call me for me because obviously I'm a big shot in my own head, right? So I remember writing you this letter, and I'm like, you know, I'm not really being nice to this Frank Jenks. I'm just kind of being an a-hole here. Let me get to know him, you know?
Right.
I was like, but it's like, well, do you know this guy? I was like, well, I was the guitar player in that band. Remember, you know, it was me. And I was like, don't be a narcissist, Glaser, you know? So I apologize to you because I think you found as as the emails continued, I became softer. I apologize.
Well, listen, it's interesting to me, and I took nothing. You didn't ever seem to be short or curt with me, but I find it interesting that when I was at whatever that age was, and we're talking about the band Glass Moon, and I somehow latched onto it. Is it so beautiful that this world works that way because of the guitarist from Ed Sullivan's show who taught you how to make friends with your guitar, and somehow that translated into a bedroom in the basement of my parents' house when I was listening to Killer at 25 or something, and I mean, even then I didn't have any bigger thoughts about life. I just thought, hey, I like this music. And now whether I listen to that or I don't know, an old Boston song, it's like, wow, there was more meaning in that, and I don't know that the meaning from your guitar didn't penetrate me, and I just didn't know it at the time, and maybe now I'm just recognizing it, and whatever, 40 years later, we're becoming friends in this sort of way.
Well, that's cool. Now I can't wait to go to Michigan so we can hang out. But let me give you a test. Do you know this one?
Sure.
Remember that? Sure. So I was watching YouTube, and I don't listen to I don't watch my own videos unless I'm editing, and I don't listen to any records. I have like 4 CDs in the house. I don't listen to anything I've done. I've got like 180 albums, and I have to look up on the web to see what records I played on because I'm a studio musician. So I'm like a musical whore, right? You have a check, I'll play.
Right.
But once we're in the studio, then the magic and majesty of music takes over. And I don't care if we're playing a McDonald's commercial, which I've done plenty of. It's got to have some feeling or it doesn't make it. And when people have done pieces on me in the paper or whatever, they talk about that that I'm fortunate I could grab the emotion. And you're never happy after they go, well, they say I have an emotion, but what about being fast? Musicians are never happy. I was telling you before the interview, I've got a social media company, management company, and dealing with musicians is really hell. But the fact that I got with Glass Moon, and I'm so thrilled that you like them and that you were in the basement listening, because I was a studio musician. And Glass Moon from North Carolina, they had a really cool band. They were playing a lot. They did stuff of their own, but they were really known down there. They were right in the right time place. They were playing Genesis and Yes songs and all this kind of stuff. The leader singer, Dave Adams, he could make some of that high register stuff. And they just played really good. And to be honest with you, Frank, I'm not sure what happened to their guitar player, but they were slated for an album, their first album, signed to Atlantic Records, and they didn't have a guitar player. So Atlantic Records, which I was on with Jean-Luc Ponty, recommended that I go to North Carolina as a studio musician and do their album. So knowing that I was riding high in the fusion world, I was much more rock than the other fusion players out there, which I am. Where they came from a bebop or jazz thing, I came from pop and rock. And so I had a different sensibility. And I went down and, you know what, Frank? It was some of the most fun 4 weeks I've had in my whole life. They were welcoming. We rehearsed in a living room. I mean, Nestor Nunez was a bass player, was that close to me that I could feel him breathe. There was no room crushed between a couch and a glass table. Then, they just wanted me to feel at home. They took me out. They introduced me to girls. I was in my 20s. I did whatever I wanted to do. I had fun. But we were very serious during rehearsal. And after the first day, something happened. The first thing, I'm very against being a studio musician. So That's what I do for a living, or did. Well, that's what I do. But if I can't be like the band person, then I'm not happy. So I told him, I said, I love these guys. We're laughing, and there's that connection that bands get, that most of the time you could do 40 billion interviews and you can't explain that bond, right?
Right.
After about 5 hours, something happened, Frank. Glass Moon had that bond. It wasn't just that I felt it. They did too. So we had Chris on drums and David and Nestor, and suddenly we were Glass Moon. And I don't know again about the universe, God, the higher power, how that happened, but it did. And as soon as that happened, we were now on a mission. And the mission was, we're going to make a #1 record. We're going to go touring, what every band thinks. And here I was like 5 days before in Long Island, New York, doing jingles for a living, and playing guitar at weddings and bar mitzvahs, and all of a sudden I'm in this band. Anyway, it was great. I'm thrilled to hear that you enjoyed the music. They were on a mission to do something that's memorable.
So you play with, Bryan Adams, Chaka Khan, Manhattan Transfer, you said earlier. I mean, you played with a lot of different, now Jean-Luc Ponty and Jon Anderson. I mean, is there something similar? Let's just compare it to Glass Moon for a second. Is there something that happens different with those super ultra successful artists than there is with Glass Moon, or is it just that it's just a different energy with Jean-Luc Ponty and Jon Anderson and with Bryan Adams' band or something? I mean, is there something that's common between all, and is there something that's different between everybody? Oh, yeah. And is it measurable? I don't even know.
I think Jon Anderson nails it, the way he describes the experience of performance and the connection between the audience and the people, whether it's through a record. I have to include downloads. It's 2019. Or a record and a thing. There is a connection. The thing is, when you're placed together, the best way I could describe this, especially to the non-musicians listening, is you have adopted each other. Truly, like you adopt a new child or a family, or people that get married. When it works well, the father-in-law is not just a father-in-law, it's really family, You could give it the label of father-in-law, but eventually 20, 30 years down, you can't separate what family is, So in all those situations, I don't see much of a difference. There is a little bit of the star thing. Like, when I found out that I was working with Chaka Khan, while she was working with us, I remember I was a big Rufus fan. I was a big fan of hers. And then I found out I'm going to live with her, right? So what happened was Elektra Records, we all lived in New York, but Elektra Records had a lot of money and like in those days, and they said, okay, we're going to rent you a house in the Hollywood Hills, right? Which they rented this house a block from Ernest Borgnine, and it was an enormous, beautiful house. Well, Humphrey Bogart was on that street too, just at the top of the Hollywood Hills, which is also, for a New Yorker, I hadn't moved to LA yet, so this was a big deal. I could tell, man, I'm in the Hollywood Hills, and I just saw Frank Zappa, and I who is Sidney Poitier? My first dinner that night, Sidney Poitier was at the next table, and Charlton Heston also. All I knew was, Charlton Heston was Moses. Who is Moses?
I think he wasn't he? In 10 Commandments?
Yeah, was that him? Anyway, I met Moses too. So I'm like in this fairyland because I'm from Long Island, New York, and I'm here, but I'm not just here. I'm not on the sightseeing bus. I'm living in a house that the record company paid for, right? So here I am with Marcus Miller and Lenny White, Donald Blackman, and we start to discuss the album we're going to record while we're all from New York, so we're trying to get Californiaized, buy some avocados, all this crap that we would never do, at least back then. And the door, there's a knock at the door. They open the door, and it's Chaka Khan. And I remember being in the kitchen, and like, in my own head, I'm going, holy S, what the heck is this? I mean, it's just like, my brain was flipping out. Chaka just walks in, she says, hey, boys, and she makes herself comfortable. She puts her bag down. And then the first night I was there, right? This I won't forget ever. I go to my bedroom. We all had our own bedrooms. And my bedroom was really close to the garage. So I hear Chaka singing. It's like 2 a.m. And there she is. She and Donald Blackman, the keyboard player, stayed up the entire night. No drugs. I know she had a reputation. No drugs. Just music. They sang and jammed until 6 a.m. And you know what, Frank? I didn't sleep for 1 second. Not one. And I was not tired at all. It was like the most amazing thing ever. But no, there's no difference. So there was a star thing. When I stood on stage with Jon Anderson, actually, I had been working with Jon Anderson on video conferencing off and on for 5 months. I never met him. So we did the entire album over Skype, and Jean-Luc Ponty lived in Paris. So I would talk to John, he would come up with a part, or they'd give me, Jean-Luc, I read music, so they'd send me a chart, I do the chart, and then John would say, oh no, try this, and I do that, and then I get a letter from Ponty saying, well, John's idea was kind of good, try this. I mean, I was flipping out for months. Fortunately, they paid me, but... So the first day I get to rehearsals in Pennsylvania, I meet John. I mean, I already kind of knew him. He already yelled at me on Skype once. So I was like, okay, it's Jon Anderson. It didn't seem that big a deal anymore. So is there a difference between working for stars and not? Yeah, you make more money. I hate to sound like that, but when Jon Anderson and Ponty were on stage and they were working out my salary, I was like, you know what, John? You sold 4.5 million copies of "Owner of a Lonely Heart." So you don't try to give me some sideman salary here.
Right.
And truly, I hate to sound like a businessman. I don't hate to sound like a businessman. That's the big difference. The amount of money you get paid.
Yeah. Right. Right. Hey, so tell me about your book. Speaking of trying to get paid a little bit anyway, but I mean, I just think the mission behind the book is so. Well, I mean, I just think your mission behind, I think Catnap and what's the other Happy Road?
Happy Road is a meditation album. Yeah, Happy Road. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, all that together seems like nothing but, because I love the idea that you said, I think in your bio, about I pulled myself out of the depths of wherever you were without pills and all this kind of stuff, and this is what helped me out. And my dad was one of those people who never, like, he had to have a major headache to even think about putting baby aspirin in his body, right?
Wow.
And so I'm kind of that guy now, and I just think there's something about, something beyond, something whether within and beyond us that can help us cope and deal and heal. And I just think it's interesting that you tapped into that. It
wasn't easy. I got to tell you, when the book came out, I've been into advertising and marketing since I'm a kid. And then at Berklee College of Music, I graduated with 612 other guitar players. And I looked around and I said, okay, I got the degree. I've just graduated with 612 people who know exactly what I know. We've all gone to the same school. How am I going to make it? So I came up with a series of things to learn, and one of the things was to get more into studying advertising and marketing, and in fact that set me apart, because while they're hiring people to get them branded, I know what that's about long time ago, you know, and so some of my, and I felt guilty after a while. Like, I know how to advertise and market myself, and that's why I got the gig, you know. And I started to think, man, maybe I suck. I just know how to promote, you know. But I had to get over all that. It's not for me to gauge whether I'm good or bad. It's people like it, that's cool. So with the book, it was positively, as I spoke to you a little earlier, my mission is to help others. There's no question. No question. From morning to night. In fact, the last year or so, I've actually started to feel incomplete for the first time in some ways, because I am obsessive now, so I don't feel like I'm helping enough people. It's weird. And so I'm working on that. That's a personal issue right now. I can't do enough. I can't make enough for animal rescue. I want to save the world. And I have to keep remembering, when I went to the shrink after the PTSD, he asked me about my goals and what I would like to be doing. And I told him, and even back then, I wanted to be of more service to others. And he told me, he says, you know, you can't be Mother Teresa. You can't be Gandhi. You can't be the Pope, and you can't be Jesus Christ. And I said, but I want to be. I told him, I want to be. He said, he says, well, he says, you can't. He says, because there's nothing to you right now. You're empty. That's what he told me. So he was going to teach me how to fill my life again. And one of those things was, he sent me out as a volunteer. I had nothing, right? I had my car, I had all the stuff I told you earlier, right? Very little in material things. He sent me out to the homeless shelter to help other homeless people. No, I wasn't homeless. To help homeless people. That changed my whole thing, man. I mean, he didn't send me there so I would not become homeless. He sent me out there to reach out to somebody else. He told me if I stayed in Jamie Glaser's world, I was going to end up finished.
Yep.
I needed to go back to the world and do that. So, yeah, the book is for that. I'm very proud of that, and we've helped several people on Facebook. You know, when you write a book, or you're a star, you become, people trust you, right? And after the book was released, earlier on, it was first released by a mental health publisher in the UK. I now self-publish it. I got the rights back. Letters started to come to my P.O. box for me to help them, for me to help their son, for me to save their husband. And it was a very, very difficult time for me because in my book, I tried over and over not to be an authority. I said in the book, my shrink gave me Prozac and Depakote, 2 drugs for depression and whatever, and it made me suicidal. So he took me off those drugs. And I decided I would do it without drugs. I would do it with meditation. I would do it with kindness. I would do it with allowing prayer and good to fill me. And I would do it by servicing or being of service to others. So immediately when I started to advertise and brand the book, I started to get letters from people in the pharmaceutical industry. One was a little bit scary. They were gonna try to stop the release of my book because they felt I was pushing people to dangerous places. That anyone who follows Hear the Silence or Jamie Glaser was going to think when they really needed medicine for schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or even a narcissistic personality disorder, that Jamie Glaser did it without medication so they can, right? And it got to be really, really kind of scary there for a while. Yeah, no, I'm telling you the truth. It was a very weird time because obviously the representatives who reached out to me, you know, they worked somehow for Pfizer or it's for one of these companies, or more than one of these companies, and the word got around. I went through the same thing, by the way, with, I don't know if you know that I'm involved with chinchillas. the animal chinchilla. But I got involved with getting threats on my life from the fur industry because I'm well known, and here I have a song called "Have a Heart" on YouTube, which talks about that people should have chinchillas as pets instead of taking 300 of them to make a coat. And suddenly, I'm being contacted by the Brazilian mafia. You know, the fur industry people. It's weird, man. So, catnap was originally supposed to be. I did some studying. I have 13 pets So, I want to know what all of my animals, every single one. I've got 4 chinchillas, 5 parrots, 2 guinea pigs, a rabbit, and a dog, and most of them are rescues, and most of them are elderly already, and every single one loves music. When I go in there, which I do almost daily with my guitar, everything stops. The birds get up on the thing. The guinea pigs sit there like mellow. Everybody loves music, right?
Wow.
My chinchillas like the blues, by the way. Yeah, it's weird, man. Did you guys see? I'd like to show you. Look up Tiki the Dancing Chinchilla. That's my. Unless you maybe saw that on YouTube already. So they have helped me, and then I said, okay, I got to make an album series, one for birds, one for cats, one for dogs, that would do what they do in this house, right? So I went to YouTube and I found a bunch of people, some with 2 million views, that have an hour-long video to soothe your birds, you know. And I know what they were doing, man. You know, they have a synthesizer, they play it, they hold a C chord for 4 bars, they move it. There's no melodies, there's no songs, just a bunch of what we call soundscape, you know, stuff you do. So I said, I got to make an album that the animals would like.
Yeah.
So I started to go through everything I could find, man. The Veterinary Association, what are the frequencies that bother cats? What are the frequencies that dogs like? Well, am I going to hurt their ears if I use distortion on my guitar? Do they like the piano? Do they like classical music? You know, on and on and on. And so I made this album for cats. And then I started to get the letters. I was told 1,000 copies the first month. They said, you know, I know you made this for cats, but, you know, my ferret loves this. Or my dog falls asleep. So so it was originally made for cats, but then I said, look, you know, this is really should be for people.
Yeah.
So it's just
I just
it's cool.
I love it that you want that know that life is interconnected.
Oh yeah.
Animals, us, you, me, Jon Anderson, trees. It's
almost scary, Frank. You know, because so many people. You know, I have this with my students. They are trying to they're trying to plan their road, right? Mm-hmm. They're trying to. And they ask me a lot of times, especially the ones who are graduating, what do I do now? Yeah. Right? Yeah. Well, I said, you just did it. You're graduating a school. You have all this knowledge. Now open your heart, make yourself available. I tell the students, don't be an ambulance chaser. It will come to you. You know, if you want to be helpful to somebody else, you know, you do it, you know. And I got to tell you a quick story. With Manhattan, there's a place in New York called Lefrick City. I don't think you would know it, being from Michigan. It's a place that you can see from the highway, the parkway, that's huge apartment buildings. But it's like its own city. And that's why they call it Lefrick City. I mean, I don't know how many acres it covers, but it's very noticeable, you know. And I was with Manhattan Transfer on the tour bus. And, you know, I'm from New York originally. So we're passing Lefrick City. And in my mind, there are 10,000 tenants. I don't know, maybe there's 300, but that's what I thought. I was 10,000. And I stood back in the back of the bus. And I remember I put my hands together and I thank you, God. The end of the story. We were playing at Carnegie Hall, which is a very prestigious place for any performer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I put my hands together and I said, thank you, God, for allowing me to do this, for making me the guitarist in Manhattan Transfer. And I see the other guys and they're looking at me like I just flipped the heck out, right? And something hit me, man. And I said, you know something, man? There are 10,000 people in that building alone. Forget all of New York. I'm sure there are other guitar players. But I'm the one who's going to Carnegie Hall tonight. That's why I'm so happy, right? Well, I'm telling you this for a reason. So the guys told me, sit down. Just like that. I sit down on the bus. It's a longer seat. And one by one, they sat on me. They told me to shut the F up and stop being so grateful. The other guy says, you're in the band, man, because you can play. And you did your homework. So stop it. You got the gig already. The thing that struck me about that day was that they were all grateful, but there is a reality to being too happy, too grateful, because other people may not be in that space right away,
I just love that.
But you got to kind of lead them.
I love that story because, that's just another human being giving the truth at a place right where you needed it. And now think about how many times you've probably thought about that story in your life.
Oh yeah, plenty of times. Plus, people have different energy levels. I'm 64, and I'm pretty energetic compared to other people my age. Particularly verbally, I talk too much. And I'm aware. If you're a good performer, you've got to be aware of what you look like and what you sound like. So I asked you when we're recording this interview, am I talking too much? Because I feel like this is your home, man. This is Frank Jenks. You're an unbelievably well-known person that interviews people, and I don't want to take over your show, but I also want to give your listeners and you something that might bring you some happiness.
Yeah, and honestly, that's the reason I do this, is just to
maybe.
I don't, I'd love it if I'd love it if another 1 million copies would sell of your stuff, but I understand that maybe only 2 pieces, do. And I sometimes I want to apologize for that, and sometimes I go, well, that's just what's meant to be right now.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Maybe it's 2 today, and maybe it's you never know how big that wave goes. When you drop that rock, that stone, whatever in the water, you never know how far that ripple goes. You never know. That is a beautiful thing.
It is, and part of the fun is seeing where it'll go. The thing is that I found, which is interesting because I had to deal with this in my own head, is the ripple will go. You throw a rock in a lake and those waves, the ripples will happen. Where it lands is usually the place you can't see or even tell, right? So where I may have gold to sell 2 pieces or to do this or do that, somehow it brought me to you. I didn't know you until today.
Right.
And I think that if people were more interested in what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes than what they're going to do in retirement, then we'd have a different world. It's also, you're living. My brother was my best friend. His name is Randy. He's an incredible drummer, went to Berklee College of Music, but when we left school, he didn't want to drum anymore. So he's got a real job. He's had a real job for 40 freaking years. And he has to drive in New York traffic every day, 5 days a week. And he's had it,
Yep.
So he's going to retire in 3-4 years. And he's talking about retirement. And Frank, you know what? When I retire is going to be when they put the dirt on me.
That's what I think about myself.
There's not, Yeah, no, there's no what the heck. I mean, why be here for this short zone if I'm going to be a flower? You know.
Yeah.
But that's not for everybody. I have to respect someone who's worked their ass off, like my brother, who wants to live on a farm or do whatever the hell they want to do. It's not for me to to tell someone else how to live.
I love it that you want to help others live, and I do mean capital L, capital I, capital V, capital E. Just go live, you know. And I think that's.
Thanks.
I mean, that's the reason. I mean, it's the reason. You know, like I think I said, it's sort of like I'm trying to get in touch with somebody else through you, and it turns out this was meant to be. You know, that's what I think anyway. I mean,
I'm really happy to know you.
Thanks so much for the time, because I mean, it's I hope we talk again. I really do, because it's easy to say that at the end of an interview, but there's something that I don't know. I don't want to say, I don't want to get all mushy or stupid, but there's just something beautiful about talking with another human being that wants to lift up other human beings, and that's the kind of people I want to be around. And if it is just texting, or if it's zipping, or I actually see you at a show, you know what I mean?
Same here, Frank. It's a great pleasure, and I appreciate that you gave me the opening and also the respect you did, since we just met, really. But I think that the fact that you've interviewed Sammy Hagar and all the stars, and that your mission is to bring the people something other than the usual, you know, how was it on the road? When is your new album coming out? What kind of groupies did you have? I mean, I have a deep respect for what you're doing. We did talk about the fact that you have a website that's busy, that you haven't done too much on some of the social media I'm involved in. So you might get ready, because I'm going to spread your name around like crazy, man.
I like it. Hey, thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Frank. We'll talk soon.